The fundamental rights are enshrined in Part 3 of the Constitution from Articles 12 to 35. In part, the framers of the Constitution derived inspiration from the Constitution of USA. Part 3 of the Constitution is rightly described as the Magna Carta of India. It contains a very long and comprehensive list of justiciable fundamental rights. In fact, the fundamental rights in our Constitution are more elaborate than those found in the Constitution of any other country in the world, including the USA. The fundamental rights are granted by the Constitution to all persons without any discrimination. They uphold the equality of all individuals, the dignity of the individual, the larger public interest, and unity of the nation. The fundamental rights are meant for promoting the ideal of political democracy. They prevent the establishment of any authorization and despotic rule in the country and protect the liberties and freedoms of the people against the invasion by the state. They operate as limitation on the tyranny of the executive and arbitrary law of the legislature. In short, they aim at establish a government of law and not of men. A fundamental rights are named so because they are granted and protected by the Constitution, which is the fundamental law of the land. They are fundamental also in the sense that they are most essential for the all round development, material, intellectual, moral, and spiritual of the individuals. Originally, the Constitution provided for seven fundamental rights. First, right to equality, Article 14 to 18. Second, right to freedom, Article 19 to 22. Third, right against exploitation, Article 23 and 24. Fourth, right to freedom of religion, Article 25 to 28. Fifth, cultural and educational rights, Article 29 and 30. And sixth, right to property, Article 31 जो हटा दिया गया. And seventh, right to constitutional remedy, Article 32. However, the right to property was deleted from the list of fundamental rights by the 14th Amendment Act 1978. It is made a legal right under Article 300A in Part 12 of the Constitution. So at present there are only six fundamental rights. Features of fundamental rights. The fundamental rights granted by the Constitution are characterized by the following. First, some of them are available only to the citizen, while others are available to all persons, whether citizen, prisoners, or legal persons like corporations or companies. Second, they are not absolute but qualified. The state can impose reasonable restrictions on them. However, whether such restrictions are reasonable or not is to be decided by the courts. Thus, they strike a balance between the rights of the individuals and those of the society as a whole, between individual liberty and social control. Third, most of them are available against the arbitrary action of the state, with a few exceptions like those against the state action and against the action of private individuals. when the rights that are available against the state's action only are violated by the private individuals. There are no constitutional remedies but only ordinary legal remedies. Some of them are negative in character. Fourth में some of them are negative in character, that is place limitation on the authority of the state, while others are positive in nature, conferring certain privileges on the person. Fifth, they are justiciable, allowing person to move the courts of their enforcement if and when they are violated. Sixth, they are defended and granted by the Supreme Court. Hence, the aggrieved person can directly go to Supreme Court, not necessarily by way of appeal against the judgment of the High Courts. Seventh, they are not circumscribed or permanent. The Parliament can curtail or repeal them but only by a constitutional amendment act and not by an ordinary act. Moreover, this can be done without affecting the basic structure of the Constitution. The amendability of fundamental rights is explained in detail, chapter 11. 8. They can suspended during the operation of a national emergency except the rights granted Article 21 and 22. Further, the sixth right granted by Article 19 can be suspended only when emergency is declared on the grounds of war and external aggression, that is external emergency, and not on the ground of the armed rebellion, that is internal emergency. The suspension of fundamental rights during a national emergency is explained in detail in chapter 16. Ninth, their scope of operation is limited by Article 31, a saving of law providing for question of e-states. Article 31, validation of certain acts and regulation included in the ninth schedule, and Article 31C, saving of law giving effect to certain directive principles. Their application to the members of armed force, paramilitary force, police force, intelligence agencies, and analogous service can be restricted or abrogated by the Parliament. Article 33. Their application can be restricted while material law is in force in any area. Material law, material, military law means military rule imposed under abnormal circumstances to restore order. Article 34. It is different from in the imposition of national emergency. Most of them are directly enforceable, self-executory, while a few of them can be enforced on the basis of the law made for giving effect to them. Such a law can be made only by the Parliament and not by the state legislature, so that uniformity throughout the country is maintained. Article 35. Definition of a state. The term state The term state has been used in different provisions concerning the fundamental rights. Hence, Article 12 has defined the term of the purpose of the Part 3rd. According to it, the state includes the following: A. Government and Parliament of India, that is, executive and legislative organs of the Union Government, and B may have government and legislature of states, that is executive and legislative organs of the state government. Third, C में all local authority that is manipulates municipalities, panchayat, district boards, improvement trust it is, and D all other authorities that is statutory or non-statutory authority like LIC, ONGC, SEL, etc. Thus, a state has been defined in a wider sense so as to include all its agencies. It is the action of these agencies that can be challenged in the courts as violating the fundamental rights. According to the Supreme Court, even a private body or an agency working as an instrument of the state falls within the meaning of the state under Article 12. Law inconsistent with fundamental rights. Article 13 declares that all laws that are inconsistent with or in derogation of any of the fundamental rights shall be void. In other words, it expressly provides for the doctrine of judicial review. This power has been conferred on the Supreme Court Article 32 and the High Court 226 यानी 226 that can declare a law unconstitutional and invalid on the ground of contravention of any of the fundamental rights. The term law in Article 13 has been given a wide connotation so as to include the following: a permanent law enacted by the parliament or the state legislature, temporary law like ordinance issued by the president or the state governors, and third, statutory instruments in the nature of delegated legislation, executive legislation like order by law, rule, regulation, or notification, and fourth, non-legislative source of law, that is custom or usage having the force of law. Thus, not only legislation but any of the above can be changed in the courts as violating a fundamental rights and hence can be declared as void. Further, Article 13 declares that a constitutional amendment is not a law and hence cannot be challenged. However, the Supreme Court held in the Keswanand Bharti case 1973 that a constitutional amendment can be challenged on the ground that it violates a fundamental right that forms a part of the basic structure of the Constitution and hence can be declared as void. आ गया था फंडामेंटल राइट एट ए ग्लेंस। क्या क्या फंडामेंटल राइट्स है जो एक नज़र में समझाते हैं। राइट टू इक्वलिटी आर्टिकल 14 to 18 बात करता है। राइट टू इक्वलिटी आर्टिकल 14 to 18 बात करता है इक्वलिटी बिफोर लॉ एंड इक्वल प्रोटेक्शन ऑफ लॉ। आर्टिकल 14 बताता है इक्वल बिफोर लॉ एंड इक्वल प्रोटेक्शन ऑफ लॉ। आर्टिकल 15 प्रोहिबिशन ऑफ डिस्क्रिमिनेशन on grounds of religion, race, caste, sex, or place of birth. Article 16 equality of opportunity in matters of public employment. Article 16. Article 17 abolition of untouchability and prohibition of its practice. Article 17. And Article 18 abolition of title except military and academic. आर्टिकल 18 ये बताता राइट टू इक्वलिटी राइट टू फ्रीडम। आर्टिकल 29 to 22 आर्टिकल 19 to 22 राइट टू फ्रीडम। राइट टू फ्रीडम में सबसे पहले प्रोटेक्शन ऑफ 6 राइट्स रिगार्डिंग फ्रीडम ऑफ स्पीच एंड एक्सप्रेशन, असेंबली, एसोसिएशन, मूवमेंट, रेसिडेंस एंड प्रोफेशन आर्टिकल 19 बताता है। आर्टिकल 20 प्रोटेक्शन इन रिस्पेक्ट ऑफ कन्विक्शन फॉर द ऑफेंस आर्टिकल 20 बताता है। प्रोटेक्शन ऑफ लाइफ एंड पर्सनल लिबर्टी आर्टिकल 21 एंड राइट टू एलिमेंट्री एजुकेशन आर्टिकल 21 के एम है। प्रोटेक्शन अगेंस्ट अरेस्ट एंड डिटेंशन इन सर्टेन केसेस आर्टिकल 22। ये सब जो 5 है राइट टू फ्रीडम है। प्रोटेक्शन ऑफ 6 राइट्स रिगार्डिंग फ्रीडम ऑफ स्पीच, प्रोटेक्शन ऑफ respect of conviction, protection of life and personal liberty, right to elementary education, protection against arrest and detention in certain cases. And third में right against exploitation 23 and 24, prohibition of traffic in human being and forced labor 23, and prohibition of employment of children in factories article 24। राइट टू फ्रीडम ऑफ रिलीजन आर्टिकल 25 से 28 तक। फ्रीडम ऑफ कंसाइंस एंड फ्री प्रोफेशन प्रैक्टिस एंड प्रोपगेशन ऑफ रिलीजन 25। फ्रीडम टू मैनेज रिलीजियस अफेयर्स आर्टिकल 26 एंड फ्रीडम फ्रॉम पेमेंट ऑफ टैक्सेस फॉर प्रमोशन ऑफ एनी रिलीजन आर्टिकल 27 एंड फ्रीडम फ्रॉम अटेंडिंग रिलीजियस instruction or worship in certain educational institution article 20। cultural and educational rights 29 and 30। protection of language, script and culture of minorities article 29। right of minorities to establish and administer educational institution article 30। right to constitutional remedies article 22। right to move the Supreme Court for the enforcement of fundamental rights including the writs of habeas corpus, mandamus, prohibition, certiorari and quo warranto article 32 बताता है। उसके बाद आता है फंडामेंटल राइट्स ऑफ फॉरिजनर्स। फॉरिजनर्स के लिए क्या फंडामेंटल राइट्स है? फॉरिजनर्स अवेलेबल ओनली टू सिटीजन एंड नॉट टू फॉरिजनर्स। फंडामेंटल राइट्स अवेलेबल फॉरिजनर के लिए अवेलेबल नहीं है। कौन कौन है भाई? प्रोविजन ऑफ डिस्क्रिमिनेशन ऑन ग्राउंड ऑफ रिलीजन, रेस, कास्ट, सेक्स, प्लेस ऑफ बर्थ आर्टिकल 15 फॉरिजनर के लिए अवेलेबल नहीं है। इक्वलिटी ऑफ अपॉर्चुनिटी इन मैटर्स ऑफ पब्लिक एम्प्लॉयमेंट आर्टिकल 16 फॉरिजनर के लिए अवेलेबल नहीं है। प्रोटेक्शन ऑफ 6 राइट्स रिगार्डिंग फ्रीडम ऑफ स्पीच एंड एक्सप्रेशन, असेंबली, एसोसिएशन, मूवमेंट, रेसिडेंस एंड प्रोफेशन आर्टिकल 19 फॉरिजनर के लिए अवेलेबल नहीं है। प्रोटेक्शन ऑफ लैंग्वेज, स्क्रिप्ट एंड कल्चर ऑफ माइनॉरिटीज आर्टिकल 29 ये फॉरिजनर के लिए अवेलेबल नहीं है। राइट ऑफ माइनॉरिटीज टू एस्टेब्लिश एंड एडमिनिस्टर एजुकेशनल इंस्टीट्यूशन आर्टिकल 30 फॉरिजनर के लिए अवेलेबल नहीं है। फॉरिजनर के लिए अवेलेबल क्या है? फंडामेंटल राइट्स। फंडामेंटल राइट्स अवेलेबल टू बोथ सिटीजन एंड फॉरिजनर्स एक्सेप्ट इनेमिड एलियन। इनेमिड एलियन के लिए नहीं, सिटीजन के लिए और फॉरिजनर के लिए, यानी जो भारत का निवासी है और जो विदेशी है, दोनों के लिए कौन कौन सा फंडामेंटल राइट्स अवेलेबल है? इक्वलिटी बिफोर लॉ एंड इक्वल प्रोटेक्शन ऑफ लॉ आर्टिकल 40 दोनों के लिए अवेलेबल है। प्रोटेक्शन इन रिस्पेक्ट ऑफ कन्विक्शन फॉर ऑफेंसेस आर्टिकल 20 दोनों के लिए अवेलेबल है। प्रोटेक्शन ऑफ लाइफ एंड पर्सनल लिबर्टी आर्टिकल 21 दोनों के लिए अवेलेबल है। प्रोटेक्शन अगेंस्ट अरेस्ट एंड डिटेंशन इन सर्टेन क्लास आर्टिकल 22 दोनों के लिए अवेलेबल। प्रोहिबिशन ऑफ ट्रैफिक इन ह्यूमन बीइंग एंड फोर्स लेबर 23 दोनों के लिए अवेलेबल है। प्रोहिबिशन ऑफ एम्प्लॉयमेंट ऑफ चिल्ड्रन इन फैक्ट्रीज आर्टिकल 24 दोनों के लिए अवेलेबल है। फ्रीडम ऑफ कंसाइंस एंड फ्री प्रोफेशन प्रैक्टिस एंड प्रोपगेशन ऑफ रिलीजन आर्टिकल 25 दोनों के लिए अवेलेबल है। फ्री टू मैनेज रिलीजियस अफेयर्स 26 दोनों के लिए अवेलेबल है। फ्रीडम फ्रॉम पेमेंट ऑफ टैक्सेस फॉर प्रमोशन ऑफ एनी रिलीजन 27 दोनों के लिए अवेलेबल है। फ्रीडम फ्रॉम अटेंडिंग रिलीजियस इंस्ट्रक्शन और वर्शिप इन सर्टेन एजुकेशनल इंस्टीट्यूशन आर्टिकल 28 दोनों के लिए अवेलेबल। क्लास यहीं जय हिंद।
अभी अपलोड हो जाता